Hello and welcome to a cornucopia of tales and tellers. It's good to be back. Hello, Alan.
Hello, Simona. Good to be back. Good crack to be had.
Yes, absolutely. So we had a long summer. We had a long summer break, and then we wanted to start right after the Storytelling Education Conference, but life kicks in, and here we are, almost a month later, starting the podcast again. So, Alan, what have you been up to in the meantime?
I have taken a new job and moved back to the center of the universe. Some people call it Cork, but we all know it's the absolute center of the universe. So, yeah, I'm director of studies in a new school down here, and I'm back storytelling with the local community. It's great fun, and it's so nice to be back. What about you, Simona? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on storytelling rather than on English teaching. I'm always teaching, but I'd like to do more storytelling. So I may have co-organized a storytelling in education conference almost a month ago, and
You
you
did
were one of
indeed.
the
I
yes,
was one of the victims. Yes, I was one of
you
the
were
victims.
one of
Oh,
the
sorry.
victims.
The audience were the victims listening to me. No, the Storytelling and Education Conference, yourself and David put on a fantastic show. It was really good, really educational. And I think everybody had a lot of fun, learned a lot of things. And yeah, it was really good. You give a little talk as well, Simona. What did you talk about?
Yeah, David and I did the last presentation, the last session of the day, which, as I told him during the conference, please next time let's not be the last ones because after 6 hours of conference, my mind was full of input from all the other speakers. I was very excited, and I found it so hard to concentrate on our own session. But well, it was the first time, so for next time we can do something different. But David and I talked about building communities through storytelling, and we actually also mentioned the A Cornucopia of Tales and Tellers podcast because this is a community with all the people that came on the podcast in the almost 2 years that's been going on,
Wow, well, we've been doing
and
this 2 years. Wow, okay.
almost two
My
years, I think.
my sense of time is destroyed. I'm actually quite surprised the conference was a month ago. I thought it was last weekend, but okay.
Yeah, it was also a month ago. I think 2 or 3 weeks now. More
Okay.
than
Yeah, but three
three
weeks, three
weeks,
weeks,
I
yeah.
think. 3 weeks now.
From time of
Yeah,
recording, of
and
course. Yeah.
exactly. And well, so we talked about building communities through storytelling, and it was great because we had many inputs from the participants as well. And we talked about the importance of building communities and how storytelling can do that, and all of the wonderful global communities that we are part of. So that was great. And Alan, I really enjoyed your presentation with Samir. Can you tell us something about that?
So Samir and myself, so there's me in the center of the universe, or Cork, Ireland, as some people call it, the real capital of Ireland, and Samir in Gaza and Palestine. And what we did was we both have quite an interest and research in identity and culture and language integration, and teaching with your L1, your L2, your L3, and so on, and how that sort of changes you as a person and as a storyteller. So we talked a lot about language, identity, culture, and storytelling, and how that intertwines and intermixes with what we tell, who we tell it to, why we tell it. I took it from the perspective of being Irish, with Irish folklore, and Samir took it from the perspective of being a proud Palestinian and the folklore and history that came with it as well. You talked about going on at the end of the day. We got really lucky because we went on just before lunch. So we hogged the 45-minute lunch break.
Yeah.
Um, as and it's kind of a shame that that wasn't recorded because that was actually possibly the highlight. But it's a conference. The lunch break is always the highlight of a conference because that's the networking bit. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully in the very near future we will be able to. The both of us are quite keen to re-record certain parts of our presentation because some of it was missed due to international events. However, Samir has quite the fantastic, poetic speech that I think we need. It deserves to be recorded and heard by others. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think it was received reasonably well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, as you said, it sparked a lot of conversation during the lunch break, and I wasn't there. I was talking with David because
Having
during the
lunch
lunch
like a person.
I wasn't really having lunch. I was too nervous to have lunch. I had a big gelato at the end of the conference. But during the conference, when you're organizing a conference, your stomach is like, oh no, you can't eat right now. So I was actually speaking to David and speaking about everything that had happened so far in the conference because part of our session was to recap all of the episodes that spoke about community during the conference. So in each and it was brilliant because in each session we found something that we wanted to talk about. So we were just thinking about the ideas and everything that had happened so far during the conference, and it was brilliant. But then I
Mm.
came back from the phone call and I saw all the things that you had written in the chat, and I saw you speaking, and I was in the room with the computer muted, and I saw you, all of you speaking, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, that was really good. It was really good. So we're back to normal then with the cornucopia of Tales and Tellers. We have more
Are
corns to add to our copia. Not sure that's a thing, but let's make it a thing. Today we have two more corns. Simona, your corn, as it were. I don't know why I'm stuck on this, but that's what I am. The story you're telling us.
Yes, so lately I've been focusing a little bit more on mythology and in particular Roman mythology because I'm Italian, but I realized delving into mythology that even though I'm familiar with a lot of myths because we studied them at school, I read. I read books based on Roman mythology. Uh, well, there are a lot of myths that I had never heard of, and I was inspired to delve into mythology because of the monthly challenge that I host on my Facebook page. And this month we are focusing on transformation. So, and what's the word? Um,
Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis. Thank you, Alan. You know it better than I do. And on metamorphosis. So I thought, oh, mythology is full of stories about metamorphosis, and I want to tell something from Italy. So I started researching, and this is one of the many stories that I found about metamorphosis in Roman mythology. It's the story of Pico and Canente.
Nice one.
So
So enjoy Pico and Canente. So grab a cup of tea, chai, water, or uscabretta. Relax and enjoy hearing tales that have been handed down for generations, or even ones that were dreamt up yesterday.
Pico was beautiful as the sun, and he was in love with Canente. They were both son and daughter of divinities of the time, and they were so beautiful and good and happy. They loved each other so much that they decided to make a pact. They would live the rest of their lives together. Pico was a king, and as a king, he was good and beautiful, and everybody loved him. And the people in the realm, seeing him and Canente together, sighed at the sight of them. They were such a beautiful couple. Everybody loved to see them together. But, as in many other stories, happiness couldn't last forever. And in this case, Circe, the enchantress, saw Pico and she fell in love with him. She wanted to have him for herself because every time she saw him, she too sighed. But she didn't want Canente to be with him. She was the right person to be with him. So she started a plan. She knew that Pico loved hunting. So she made a boar, a huge boar made of air, made of nothing. And she sent the boar towards Pico and his friends who were hunting in the woods. Pico and his friends started following the boar, but soon the boar was going so fast, being made of air and nothing else, that only Pico was left following him. And Pico ran and ran and ran through the woods, but suddenly he stopped. He looked around himself. He was surrounded by fog. Thick fog. He couldn't see anything around him. He looked and looked for the boar, but he couldn't see him. But soon he heard a voice. Pico, give me your hand. Give me your hand, I'm here. Pico, come with me. Stay with me. We will be together for the rest of time. Who are you? Said Pico, looking at the figure that was coming towards him in the fog. You are not Canente. I'm in love with Canente. I want to be with her for the rest of my life. And then he saw Circe's angry face. He had never seen such an angry face. And so, afraid, he started running, and he ran as fast as he could, with Circe following him. But soon the sound of steps on the ground changed into the flutter of wings. Circe had transformed him into a woodpecker. And the woodpecker flew away, and to this day, the woodpecker is flying. And he is pecking at the trees, angry because the trees hadn't done anything to save him and to protect him from Circe. And Canente? What happened to Canente? Canente looked for Pico everywhere, but she couldn't find him. She went around calling him and crying. And then she came to the river Tiber, and there she laid on the ground, and she cried until she couldn't cry any more. And they say that to this day, if you go to the river Tiber and you pay attention, you can still hear Canente crying.
Thank you very much, Simona. You will never look at nature the same way again, especially around the Eternal City. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So it I really find that these myths are fascinating because they explain things about nature, and they actually make you look at nature in a very different way. It's fascinating. But enough for my story. What story have you got for us, Alan?
Tonight, I'm going to tell you the true story of the hitchhiker.
Fascinating. The
I
stage is
hope so.
yours.
So when I was growing up in the mid to late 1980s, I'm not that old. My grandfather used to take little odd jobs all around the country. So maybe one day he would build a kitchen. Maybe one day he would be off to Derry to paint a house. Maybe the next day he would be into Belfast to fix a car. Maybe another day he would go down to Oma or Enniskillen to fix a tractor or even plough a field. One of those things. And milk cows in the Glens of Antrim, something like that. Little jobs everywhere, all the time, because that's just what we had. Because in the 80s, people don't seem to realize Ireland was an extremely poor place. And we had a few little problems going on at the same time, a civil war. So, anyway, one day when I was young, probably, I'm assuming this must have been over my summer holidays when I was young and not in school. He would sometimes take me and we would go off on a gallivant or a day trip somewhere as he worked, and I would just sort of sit there and say, for example, he was building a kitchen, he would give me a little bowl of water or something and a paintbrush, and I would think I was awesome. I would paint the house. It was just water on a paintbrush, but still, I felt good. But anyway, one day we set off and we were heading to Derry. So it's a long enough journey to Derry, about an hour and a half. If you're living in a little tiny island, that's quite a distance. We would leave the house together with our packed lunch and paints and all that kind of thing. He was working on a kitchen that day. And we would go to the nearest town because we lived in the countryside. We would fill the car up with petrol and set off on our way. So, as we went on our way from the Glens of Antrim over to Derry, even in the mid 1980s, my grandfather was quite a friendly man. He would do anything for anybody. He wasn't going to judge anybody. Didn't matter what side you were on. So, he had a tendency to pick up hitchhikers, which still a pretty common thing on the island. Maybe not the safest thing to do in the late 1980s, heading to Derry, but sure, did it anyway. So we were going up what's known as the Glen Shane Pass. It's a road that goes between the valleys and the mountains to get you to Derry. And there was a lad with his thumb sticking out. Yeah, normal hitchhiker activity. Grandfather slowed down and went to get the guy into the van. Now, the fella had what can only be described as a massive box. Giant box. No idea what was in it. Now, I was 7 or 8 at the time, maybe 6, I'm not too sure. And I'm pretty sure I could have got in that box with a bit of encouragement, and you could have closed it and you wouldn't have known the difference. He was carrying what can only be described as a very, very large box. So anyway, he got in the van, we said hello, and he said, eh. And we headed on the way to Derry. Now, as you know, being in Ireland, you need to do the thing called, you need to shorten the road. To shorten the road with someone means you converse in conversation and you tell stories to literally shorten the distance of your journey. So my grandfather was the storytelling type, so he always wanted to shorten the road. So he asked him, so where are you heading today up around Derry? Just Derry, was his response. All right, fair enough. Not a wordsmith. Is that your packed lunch in that box? It's none of your business what's in that box, was his gruff response. He wasn't the friendliest of characters. Obviously, he wasn't going to give us his name, and we definitely weren't going to ask at this time of the events taking place in the north. But I was a wee chatty sort of 7-year-old, one of those annoying wee sods that couldn't read the room. So first thing I said to him was, what football team do you support? None of your business who I support. Okay, fair enough. Hurling? You into hurling instead? None of your business. You know, I had to ask him about hurling and football in case he was from one side or the other side. Who knows? Okay, fair enough. Is that box heavy? It's none of your business. Okay, fair enough. So this journey was taking a while. My grandfather was driving to the right of me. I was in the middle of the van, And there was this fella to my left, rubbing my shoulders with this giant box. And he was starting to make the atmosphere very, very awkward. I don't pick up on these things. So even I find this was very, very awkward. But my grandfather kept trying to have a bit of conversation with him just to see what was going on. He's like, "Did you watch that football last night?" "None of your business what I did last night." This was getting weird. This was getting really uncomfortable. So we drove on a bit more. He's like, my grandfather said to him, "So we're going to this part of Derry. Where do you want me to leave you off?" "Just leave us off in the centre. I'll do." This was the longest sentence we got out of this guy the whole time. This was something he was talking to me a bit more. "And what are you for doing when you get to Derry?" "None of our business." And he was starting to get annoyed. He's like, "Is that box a part of your work?" "It's none of your business." And this kept going and going. But then I noticed my grandfather was thinking something else. As you come down off the Glenshane Pass before you go into Derry, there's a petrol station. So we went into the petrol station, and my grandfather went, "Right, I'm going to put more petrol in the van here. We've been driving all morning." And even I knew we put petrol in the van this morning. We didn't need petrol again. So my grandfather turns to the guy with the box and says, "Here, I'm going to fill up this place with a bit of petrol. Do you want to go into the shop there and get yourself some lunch or something?" Your man goes, "Hey, but don't touch that box. None of your business." So my grandfather got out of the van and he went to touch the petrol pump, but he was watching your man walk further and further into the garage. And then he just got in the van and we drove off because there was no way I was going to be in that situation any longer. That was horrible for the both of us. So we drove on. 10 minutes later, we got to Derry. Right. Nice day's work ahead of us. Nice day's work ahead of us. Got round the first roundabout. Grand. Traffic's all right. Got round the second roundabout. Wee bit slower. My grandfather's driving, looking around the roundabout, and he's looking at the traffic, and I'm looking at the traffic. He turns left and takes the first exit off the roundabout, and he looks left, and I look left. But then I turn to my grandfather, to my right, and he turns to his left and looks at me. And at the exact same moment of time, we were thinking the exact same thing. The both of us looked to my left, and there was the box, still sitting in the van. What were we going to do now? There was a crazy man we had abandoned on the outskirts of Derry during a civil war who is missing his giant box. So we drove around for about 20 minutes trying to work out what to do.
What was in the box?
None of your business.
Oh, Alan, I didn't expect that ending. But now I want to know. Can you tell us what was in the box?
It's up to your imagination what was in the box.
Oh, I won't sleep tonight. I'll be thinking, what was in the box?
I got told that story by someone over a campfire one night, and I just thought that is a superb story because he told it from his perspective. Apparently, it's a really common story to tell around campfires and stuff here. And he had me hook, line, and sinker. I believed every second of it the entire time until he got to the end where I was like, wow, that was
Well,
something else.
I thought it was you. thought it
It was
was one
me.
of your
It was me.
stories.
It was. Every single story that I tell is true. Yeah. You should know that by now.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be like Pinocchio, Alan, with your nose growing and growing.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I really don't need a bigger nose than I already have. I'll take an elbow or something. That'll do. Yeah.
So, Alan, thank you very much for your story. I enjoyed
Uh,
it a lot.
and thank you very much, Simona, for a bit of Roman mythology as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to be back and to record this new episode of a new series of a cornucopia of tales and tellers. So, thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much, and see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Cornucopia of Tales and Tellers is a passion project brought to you by English teachers Alan and Simona, who want to create a compilation, or a cornucopia, if you will, of stories from all around the world by as many tellers around the world as possible. So grab a cup of tea, chai, water, or uskabraha, relax and enjoy hearing the tales that have been handed down for generations, or even ones that were dreamt up just yesterday. Music by Purple Planet. You can find us on Facebook at a cornucopia of Tales and Tellers. And if you like what you hear, you can buy us a coffee to help fund future episodes and the hosting of our podcast. Link in the description.